One of the foundational themes Vonda Wright discusses is the pervasive myth that aging is an inevitable, uncontrollable decline. Many people resign themselves to physical and mental deterioration after a certain age, accepting aches, pains, and reduced function as just getting old. This mindset often leads to a slow, unconscious surrender of vitality, with individuals giving up activities and interests one by one until they no longer recognize themselves. Vonda emphasizes that aging itself is the most natural process of all, occurring from conception to death, but it is how we handle the passage of time that determines the trajectory of our health. Rejecting the fatalistic view of aging allows individuals to take responsibility for their well-being and adopt behaviors that actively slow decline rather than accelerating it. She highlights that believing "there's nothing I can do" is the main driver behind neglect, especially among women who often prioritize others' needs before their own. Closely tied to the previous point is the importance of mindset. Vonda stresses that having the right mindset and building mental resilience are crucial to aging powerfully. Aging, she says, is not for the sissies. It requires grit, perseverance, and an intentional decision to stay active in self-care despite challenges that arise. Developing physical resilience through consistent, science-backed activity is essential, but equally important is cultivating mental toughness. Vonda advocates for forming social groups of like-minded people who encourage healthy habits and positive attitudes towards aging. The influence of the 5 people you spend the most time with can either propel or hinder your journey toward vibrant aging. Thus, fostering supportive relationships creates a foundation for sustained health behaviors. A major part of the conversation revolves around the distinct endocrine changes men and women experience as they age. Men typically undergo a gradual decline in testosterone over decades, while women face a rapid, steep drop in estrogen during perimenopause and menopause. Vonda describes women's hormonal transition as estrogen walking out the door and slamming it behind her, which triggers a host of physical and cognitive symptoms such as brain fog, night sweats, and widespread inflammation. Women are born with all the eggs they will ever have, but by age 40, only 1 to 3% remain, drastically reducing estrogen production. This hormonal flux disrupts multiple organ systems, explaining why symptoms surface well before the official menopause marker of 1 year without menses. The sharp estrogen decline contributes to brain changes, heart microvascular disease, accelerated bone loss, and muscle wasting. This contrasts with the slow testosterone decline in men, which produces less dramatic endocrinological effects. Bone health emerges as a critical concern often overlooked in discussions about aging. Vonda brings attention to bone's multiple roles beyond structure. It is a dynamic, communicative organ involved in hormone production, blood cell formation, and metabolic regulation. Bone secretes hormones such as osteocalcin, which influence brain function and glucose metabolism, underscoring its systemic importance. Unfortunately, many people only notice bone health when a fracture occurs, and fractures, especially hip fractures, carry severe consequences, including high mortality and loss of independence. Vonda stresses that bone density peaks around age 30, and after that, women experience accelerated bone loss around menopause, sometimes 2 to 3% per year, compounding lifetime deficits. Early lifestyle factors, such as nutrition, physical activity, and hormonal health during youth and midlife, determine bone resilience in older age. Preventing osteoporosis and fractures requires lifelong attention. Vonda highlights the period between ages 35 and 45 as the critical decade when foundational health can either be solidified or undermined. This is when women face increasing hormonal decline and when lifestyle choices profoundly impact their future health trajectories, especially regarding bone, muscle, and metabolic reserves. She encourages individuals to adopt nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory diets combined with consistent muscle building and cardiovascular activities. Importantly, this decade is about cultivating sustainable habits, not austerity or deprivation. For women dealing with energy deficiencies, irregular cycles, or disordered eating, this period demands focused interventions to preserve hormones and structural health. Starting healthy behaviors late is beneficial, but building the base early offers a significant advantage. Extending the lifespan perspective, The conversation explores bone health challenges in younger people, including teenagers and young adults. Vonda reveals alarming cases of osteopenia in individuals as young as 24, driven largely by social pressures for thinness, undernutrition, and sedentary, screen-focused lifestyles that undermine peak bone building. The rise of eating disorders and energy deficits, especially in female athletes, contributes to poor hormone function and impaired bone formation. Modern cultural conditioning encourages women to be teensy and take up little space physically, which can counterintuitively lead to lifelong fragility. Vonda underscores the importance of modeling healthy movement for children, integrating impact and load-bearing activity into family routines, and prioritizing nutrition to optimize peak bone density. Pregnancy and lactation present distinct physiological challenges for maternal bone health that need greater awareness. Babies require large amounts of calcium, around 500 milligrams daily, which the mother's body must provide via increased gut absorption or bone resorption. If nutrition is insufficient, bone loss occurs, a phenomenon known as osteoporosis of pregnancy. Postpartum bone rebuilding depends heavily on adequate nutrient intake and management. Breastfeeding prolongs the maternal calcium drain, emphasizing the need for intentional support during this demanding period. With many women delaying childbearing into their 30s and 40s, the time available to rebuild bone stores between pregnancies shrinks, increasing risks of long-term fragility. Vonda encourages women and healthcare providers to monitor bone health proactively before, during, and after childbearing years. Movement is portrayed as a fundamental pill that treats a wide range of chronic diseases and metabolic dysfunction. Vonda explains that muscle contraction triggers the release of signaling molecules that improve glucose metabolism, reduce inflammation, and stimulate stem cell rejuvenation. In model organisms such as mice, even brief treadmill running reverses stem cell aging and restores cellular health. This molecular influence of movement extends to gene expression, mitochondrial function, and tissue repair, fundamentally shaping the aging process. Movement becomes more than physical activity. It is a biochemical choreographer directing health from the cellular to the systemic level. Vonda asserts that regular variety in movement types and intensities is foundational for resilient aging. In practical terms, Vonda offers a hybrid training approach to combat aging's hallmarks. Her typical week consists of daily flexibility and mobility routines combined with around 3 hours of low-intensity aerobic Zone 2 training to optimize mitochondrial function and metabolic health. Complementing this, she advocates sprint interval training twice weekly for brief but intense bursts to improve muscle satellite cell activation, cardiovascular capacity, and body composition. Strength training rounds out the program, focusing on low-rep, heavy lifting to build power essential for functional independence and fall prevention in midlife and beyond. This multifaceted regimen addresses multiple physiological systems simultaneously, the cardiovascular, neuromuscular, and musculoskeletal, to sustain vitality and inhibit age-related decline. One of Vonda's powerful visual tools is MRI imagery of thigh muscle from younger and older people. Sedentary individuals show significant destruction of muscle architecture, marked by infiltration of fat, marbling, and loss of muscle volume. In contrast, active older athletes maintain remarkably youthful muscle composition comparable to their 40-year-old counterparts, demonstrating that muscle degradation is primarily a consequence of disuse rather than chronological age. This distinction matters tremendously because muscle quality influences strength, metabolic health, and mobility. The condition called osteosarcopenic obesity describes the dangerous trifecta of poor bone density, low muscle mass, and excess fat, which synergistically worsen health outcomes. Maintaining muscle integrity through consistent activity is essential to avoid this debilitating phenotype. Given the dramatic estrogen decline women experience at midlife, Vonda discusses the role of hormone replacement therapy, HRT, as a tool to mitigate symptoms and prevent long-term health consequences. She critiques the lingering fears born from misinterpretation of the 2002 Women's Health Initiative study, which caused many women to reject HRT due to exaggerated cancer risks, despite data showing minimal differences in breast cancer incidence or mortality. Vonda advocates for informed, individualized decision-making regarding estrogen replacement, emphasizing its protective effects on bone, brain, heart, and muscle. She acknowledges agency and personal choice, but encourages women not to forego potentially transformative treatment out of unfounded fears. She also highlights the importance of considering progesterone and even testosterone in women's hormone optimization strategies.